What up, everybody? This is Dario Hunt from Living Life Fearless. Welcome back to another episode of our Fearless Show podcast. Today's date is March 22nd, 2019. Today, we have a special guest filling in for my usual co-host, Aaron Pruner. Say hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody.
So, he is a recent, addition to our team over at LLF, recent writer. And I think you have produced one piece so far about class.
Yeah.
And, we've been talking about getting you on the show for a while, so I'm glad that we could finally, kind of get that worked out.
Yeah, good to be here.
Before we start, if you want to kind of let everybody know a little bit about yourself.
All right. Let's see here. I'm going to try to give you the short version. I'm an actor. At least I started off as an actor in LA. I was on a TV show called VR Troopers in the 90s, which was like a Power Rangers spinoff. And from there, I acted professionally for about 20 years. And about a decade ago, the economy tanked and my agent passed away. And I sort of used that time to pivot careers. And I started writing as a hobby. Never went to school for this. And it's crazy because like 10 years later, I've written for the Washington Post and the Hollywood Reporter. And I regularly freelance for places like Thrillist and Playboy. You've taken me on. And between that and being a stay-at-home dad, I'm in LA and trying to still, juggle as much work as I can. It's been a grind, but not a bad one. And that's one of the reasons why I've had a hard time getting my schedule worked out with you to get on. But I'm happy to be here. And I guess that's me in a nutshell. If you want to look it up, I'm on Netflix. I don't look like this. In 1994, I was way skinnier. It's a show called VR Troopers. I wear glasses. I'm the nerd on the show who gets beat up all the time.
See, I did not know that you were an actor. I didn't know that you were on a TV show, kind of like Power Rangers. That's pretty dope.
Yeah. I go to the Power Rangers convention all the time as a celebrity guest. It's pretty ridiculous. Like I know Bulk and Skull. I whenever I see them at the conventions, like we hang out. It's weird. Looking back on it now, but yeah, that's where I started.
I mean, that's awesome. I personally was never really a big Power Rangers fan, but obviously I know it's got such a massive following, and that's pretty dope to kind of even associate with that.
Yeah. I never was either, so no worries. All
right. Is there any place that they can find you outside of obviously on our site?
Yeah. On Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, I'm Aaron Flux, AARONFLUX. I do my own podcast. We're currently on hiatus because, as I mentioned, I have a baby, which
make things a little tougher.
Yeah, I do a podcast that I've been doing now for almost 6 years called Punch Drunk TV, where I get drunk with my co-host Jack and we argue about television. Previously, the show was called Pass the Effin' Remote. We were hosted at a website called Geek Nation, which was a pretty big entertainment site, and then it just sort of imploded and disappeared from the internet. So now we're Punch Drunk TV, so look us up. We're at punchdrunktv.com and punchdrunk_TV on Twitter and Punch Drunk TV on Facebook.
Yeah, I've definitely checked out a couple myself.
Oh God, I'm sorry. my co-host and I always tell people, don't do that. Do not listen to the show. Like we'll go on interviews and people will be like, oh, I see you're a podcast producer. I'm like, no, we're just hanging out in his living room at like midnight and drinking whiskey and arguing about the worst CW shows. Like,
I mean, that makes for some of the best conversations, doesn't it though?
It does. It's not the most polished show, but yeah. I mean, we've been doing it for 6 years, so there got to be something that brings us back,
Yeah. I mean, they're fun, definitely. I mean, this is for sure not the most polished show, but I think we get some pretty good talks out of it.
Yeah.
So before we start, just want to get, some housekeeping out the way. So as always, if you guys are following us and you guys continue to follow us and like these podcasts that we do, you can definitely subscribe anywhere that this is up. Obviously on our website, on SoundCloud, we're on YouTube, we're on Apple Music, we are on Google Play, everywhere basically except for Spotify. So wherever you guys, kind of follow us, definitely subscribe because we're going to try to do these even more often now. And if you like any of the gear that I rock in these videos, or for everybody that's actually watching this, you can also head over to the site where we, do a lot of stuff. We get out a lot of gear, and we just released a new coffee table book. So definitely check that stuff out. And if you have any topics, questions, or suggestions about this show, past show, or any other future shows, you can also let us know at podcast@livinglifefearless.co, or go to livinglifefearless.co/podcast, where you can fill out the form. And oftentimes a lot of you guys' comments and stuff make it into one of our future shows. So we'd love to have you guys part of the conversation.
That coffee table book was pretty badass, by the way.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, I'm excited for it.
Definitely took a few months to get everything together. It was our first real one, so it was an experience, but it was fun, and I think it turned out really well. So
yeah, that's awesome.
So as always, we're gonna hop into some news items, and there weren't a ton of like major headlines, just a bunch of smaller stuff. So it's gonna be more of a kind of quick run through on some of the stuff, and we'll take a bit more time on some of the more interesting headlines. But
obviously, your biggest headline is the fact that Supernatural is ending after season 15, right?
That is one of my headlines.
Really? I was kidding. I didn't know that was real. Sorry. No, I will let you continue.
It's on the list. It's definitely on the list. But I mean, what I really want to first kind of mention that first popped up is TLC, obviously the very famous group by Chasing Waterfalls. They are, I guess, trying to start a Broadway play at sometime in the future. So I guess it's going to cover their history as a group, some of their greatest songs, and then some original stuff from both T-Boz and Chili. So I just thought that was kind of interesting to see.
Didn't Left Eye burn a house down? Didn't she set fire to like a thing?
Yeah, she definitely did that. I think, I can't remember if it was like her boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, something like that. Yeah, his house burned down.
That has to be in the play. That has to be in there, right? Like if I'm going to go to a play about the story of TLC, I best see someone burning a house down, or else I'm going to feel like I didn't get my money's worth.
They did recently have a biopic, obviously, like every single music group apparently is doing these days. It was a straight to TV one, and there was a lot of crazy stories, but they said there's even crazier stories that they haven't told yet, and I can only imagine, considering those are the ones that we have heard.
I'm into it. I mean, I don't know if we'll go, but you've piqued my interest.
I'm definitely interested to see kind of the reaction about it,
Yeah.
Never thought TLC, Broadway, two things I never really put together.
Right. Yeah, but weirder things have happened. I mean,
yeah.
That you piqued my interest. I don't really have anything else to say about it except there better be someone burning down a house.
It's kind of hard to tell their story without that, So we do cover a lot of art on the website, and that's just us as a brand. So we're going to cover some art news. As we said, that we did start a new news segment on our website where we kind of cover daily reporting and whatnot. And recently there was a report about Nvidia. They have an AI chip or technology that can take your most basic sketches and turn them into the most photorealistic kind of renderings within a matter of seconds. So it's pretty crazy. There's a video attached to the article you can find on the website where they just kind of paint things green, brown, red, whatever, and the computer automatically knows whether that should be like rocks or mountains or like landscapes or stuff, and it basically pumps it out into a super realistic looking picture. It's kind of creepy, actually.
I will look that up, and yes, that sounds creepy to me. I mean, there's something to be said for like. Are you familiar with the concept of the singularity? Every time you
conversation.
Right. I mean, every time I hear of some new artificial intelligence piece of technology or innovation that comes out, it's like we're closer to that Skynet moment where suddenly, we're hunkered down in the basement while there's machines out doing who knows what. I'm impressed with these types of innovations, but at the same time, it's like what's next? I mean, you could 3D print a gun right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's they're testing out driverless cars, and I don't know if have you seen that show, Love, Death,
I have, and
Robots?
that was definitely going to talk about that, but we can talk about it now because I enjoyed it a lot. Anthology on Netflix.
There's an episode I just watched last night called Zima Blue, about an artist
Yep.
who becomes more and more machine-like, and that's kind of like that's the first thing I thought of when you brought this up. Like, where does the humanity end and the technology begin? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, their AI is getting better obviously every single day, and it's really starting to be able to imitate like kind of human expression,
Yeah.
especially with like a big concern with this type of technology is that it's so easy to fake photographs now that it's really hard to kind of tell the difference.
Those face swap things where, what was it, Jordan Peele voiced Barack Obama, and they made a
Yeah,
video and people thought it
yeah,
was actually Obama.
yeah. And outside of like a few kind of giveaways that you have to really be kind of looking for, it's really hard to tell now. And I mean, it's pretty much the Wild West right now because nobody really knows what type of rules, regulations, or like how to even really kind of control things like this. So I'm excited, but kind of cautiously so at the same time because I'm sure people are going to use this in ways that you can't even really imagine right now.
But yes, but taking it back to the art story you were just talking about, these are real human drawings that the computer is then reinterpreting in a more realistic manner.
Yeah, so you can literally it make a sketch, kind of a rough sketch, or it can be like our title is it turns your crap. You can finally turn your crappy third grade sketches into like fine art. So it can be like a really rough, terrible sketch, and then the computer will. I guess they kind of program it right now. They've only showed landscapes, but it can take it and turn it into something that really looks like somebody just had a camera and took a picture of like somewhere, like landscape wise.
Okay, so hear me out. Uh, how long do you think it's going to be until there's a scam where someone draws some like shitty painting or shitty drawing, puts it through the AI, it comes out like a Monet. They then take it and start their own art gallery and start charging
Yeah, I
money
give
for it.
it
Right.
about a week after it first kind of releases to the public. Probably even less than that, but yeah, somebody's gonna try, of course. Like
See?
that's just kind of human nature at this point. Is for somebody anyway they
That-
can come up, they're gonna try. So
That's what I'm saying. So like, I guess we kind of deserve it if the robots rise up eventually, if we're going to be scamming people like that. But I mean,
I mean,
you
I feel
gotta,
sorry for people who aren't gonna be tech savvy in the future because the stuff that's coming out now is you wouldn't even imagine that it'd be possible. So to see
yeah,
it, you wouldn't even think like, oh, this could be fake, or maybe I'm not. Maybe I am being scammed right now.
yeah, I do. Wow, that's insane.
But definitely check the article out because there's actually a video of it, them actually doing it, and the video I can't really give it justice. The video
All
is
right,
insane.
yeah, I'll check it out. I had no idea.
So next, so Marvel and comic books have basically kind of taken over culture at this point, and now they're going into certain art museums, and they have an exhibit at the Franklin Institute about their kind of entire history, cinematic and otherwise. So just kind of they just continue to take things over more and more into mainstream and mainstream culture, which is kind of insane to think about. When I was just a kid, it wasn't really that mainstream.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, I just mentioned like 10 minutes ago I played a nerd on television before nerds on TV were cool, but like it's kind of like the way I view things, when I was playing this character, kids would come up to me and try to kick me and beat me up because that's what they saw on TV. And it wasn't until after uh, kids were getting bullied at school that we got a note on the production to change things. And then here we are, like, that was 94. So in like 2004, I went to my first Comic-Con. And then the Big Bang Theory happened, and suddenly this like image of nerds sort of shifted. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
And now here we are, where you got Bill Maher on TV talking all this mad shit about comic books and how adults shouldn't be into comic books, but at the same time, the flip side of that is how much of a money-making industry it is, and the types of just at their base, like the human stories that they're telling, the age-old good versus evil and moralistic stories of right versus wrong and all that stuff. Like, it seems to be universal when you look at it at that point. So, like, I don't know, it feels like a gradual place to where we are now. And
yeah. I mean, my kind of take on it. We have this conversation actually a lot on this podcast because being my other co-host, we love comic books. Obviously, we grew up with Marvel and all these superheroes, especially on TV and cartoons and animated shows. So we kind of understand it. Our kind of take on it, my take on it specifically, like with Bill Maher, he doesn't really understand comics either. Like he kind of pictures them as still that kind of really childish kind of medium. But the stuff that's being pumped out today is far more like mature and like operates more in that gray area, and it's not just straight like good versus evil. And it's like they really talk about current issues in kind of like more free ways and a lot of times than is possible in like other mediums. And I mean, you can't read something like Watchmen or other stuff like that and say that comic books are for children, because there's such a wide range of, like in anything, even with movies and TV shows, there's such a wide range now of the different type of stuff that they're talking about and a different type of, stories they can tell. So I just think it's grown into like an actual art form, because like I said, you can read something about, civil rights, and then you can read something about, your typical Superman type of story, and it's all considered comic books, but there's different levels to like how complex and how complicated and how serious, stuff should be taken. And I already kind of did an opinion piece a while ago, basically saying that comic books have basically taken over, like, I said that the comic books are basically like the new gods at top Mount Olympus, meaning that they have basically taken over like Greek culture, where back in the day, those were kind of the moral stories that people kind of got and kind of turned towards, like in terms of lore, especially in the Western world. That's where kind of all of our stuff was kind of based off of. But now, if you ask kids about like Zeus and all these, they don't really know those stories. But if you ask them about like Spider-Man or Batman or whatever, they can tell you like it really happened. Everybody knows their backstory. And when I was younger, yeah, you had kids that knew it, but I think even I knew more about like those Greek gods and those more type of teachings than you did from comic books. And now it's kind of shifted. And I think it's just kind of always how the process goes. And yeah, like it kind of just took over that kind of lane. And it's basically like the new, like when Western's really big, comics really big right now. It's just kind of a natural flow. And I just think that there are so many talented people involved in comic books. Obviously, you do have some childish stuff, but there are so many like hidden like stories out there that are really great that you can't really lump it all together. So it's not necessarily a bad thing or a good thing. It kind of just is what it is. And obviously, if you only see the blockbusters and everything, then you're going to think it's all just watered down kind of bullshit. But even the movies now are getting really interesting in some of the stories that they tell. So I think it's just growing as a medium, and I think it's more of a good thing than a bad thing for sure.
No, I agree, and I cover a lot of television with what I do, and I was just talking to my co-host because he's a big Marvel guy, about this, and it's interesting. Like a couple of years ago, the TV show Legion came out roughly around the same time that Preacher came out. Two very different comic books, very dark and weird, but what they both helped to do was expand the idea of what a comic book story can be on TV in that narrative. And we've seen Marvel try the Defenders and Luke Cage, Daredevil on Netflix, and those are all canceled now. And now I feel like we're in that next stage where you got Grant Morrison's Happy, and you got Preacher, and you got Legion and Deadly Class, which you mentioned earlier. and Watchmen, which I don't even know how they're going to do that. But it feels like we're getting to this more experimental area in what TV can be in relation to these more out there comic book stories, and it's definitely not for children. So
No.
I'm
Umbrella
excited to.
Academy,
Oh,
for example.
absolutely, right, yeah, yeah. So I'm excited to see where that goes, and the fact that they're having an art show, like, I mean, that I'm not mad at that. That seems like something that should be done,
It's
you know?
such an embedded part of our kind of culture now that you have to acknowledge it
Right.
as it is. Otherwise, you're just not being genuine. And so it is what it is. Like I said, and the only real problem I have with it, I sometimes have with it, is that people can get too tied into like the nostalgia factor of things, and that kind of over like, I don't know how you say it. It kind of just like overrides like the progress and progress you can have in the medium, and it can create some like how they call them like toxic fandoms and stuff because
I got
they're
into an
so tied
argument
to it. You know what I'm
on
saying? So
Twitter. Yeah, I got into an argument on Twitter with a guy who was attacking a female journalist friend of mine for writing a piece about Captain Marvel. And it was basically what you're talking about. The whole nostalgia of Captain Marvel as a comic book and Brie Larson as Captain Marvel in the movie. And it just it turned into this very strange argument that was like surrounding the idea that his childhood was being ruined because this interpretation of
yeah,
Captain
like
Marvel is
how my thing is, how can your childhood be ruined? Your childhood happened. It is what it
right.
is. Like if something, you're like a 30, 40-year-old man, like, and having something new and different, because now it's not just appealing to you. It's like a wide thing, which is what you wanted it to be, more mainstream, and now it's appealing to everybody. So there's younger generations that don't have that same connection to you, and to be like, oh, my childhood is ruined. Like it's, I think that part of it is pretty fucking ridiculous.
100%. 100%. It's so dumb. Uh, but I try to avoid these arguments and these confrontations, but it sometimes it's like you have to step and be like, the comic books are for you, and if you didn't enjoy the movie, there's gonna be another one in a couple months you'll probably
Right.
enjoy. Avengers Endgame is coming out soon, and it's there's bigger fish to fry out there.
Right.
Everyone has a thing.
Like, I mean, I didn't love the Captain Marvel movie, but I wasn't like up in arms about it. Like, it's just is what it is. Like, I don't love the new Star Wars movies, but at the same time, it's like, okay, like I have the ones that I related to most, and then maybe these are for somebody else. But it is what it is. Like, I can't,
Yeah,
when something grows that big as comic book culture and kind of has that, it's like it's out of your control, and it's gonna be what it is. Like, there's the new Toy Story trailer that just came out, and Toy Story for me is like such an integral part of like my child. That and like Lion King were like the movies for me,
right.
and I think it ended perfectly with Toy Story 3. Like,
Same here.
I don't even think there was a need or necessary to like even revisit. So,
Yeah.
but at the same time, like, I understand that it is, you know, such a big kind of franchise and piece of culture that there are younger kids that grew up watching like Toy Story 3 first or something like that. Like, they have their own type of connection to it. And I'm not going to get like up in arms about that they're making a fourth one. If I don't like it, then I just don't like it. Like, it's not going to ruin what the previous ones were for me. That's the only part I hate about like this modern wave about.
There's this sense of ownership that
Yeah.
people have glommed onto with certain types of entertainment that is directly connected to, I guess, a time in their lives when they formed their idea of identity. And now they're 20 years, 30 years later, whatever, and they see that thing that they identify so much with reinterpreted in a way that ends up being insulting, damaging somehow to
Yeah.
who they are at their core, that they end up lashing out at anyone and everyone who finds some sort of joy. Um,
Like, lashing out at actors who are part of a, reboot is
yeah.
ridiculous. Like, how dare you do your job? Like, how dare you
Right.
take an opportunity in the franchise? Like, come on, like, like they have no control over how the story's going to be, and just like it's ridiculous how some of the things go. And you get it in other mediums. Obviously, you get it in music and you get it in TV, other stuff. But it's like it doesn't feel like it's as loud or as aggressive as like in this kind of nerd culture.
Yes, I could talk a lot about this and speculate on how we got here as nerds, as as one point in time from like Revenge of the Nerds up through the 90s, it was like, it was okay to pick on and beat up, the weird kid in school and to use them as a punchline. And then something shifted and the nerds got the power. And I'm not going to say with great power comes great responsibility. I just did. But there's something to be said for like that sort of concept of an origin story to suddenly being in a position where you feel like you might have some sort of power or agency to speak on things that you may not have had 20 years ago because of the way pop culture and society treated you, so that now this stuff happens and then you feel you have the right to turn around and give the exact same kind of abuse you received 20 or 30 years before.
Yeah, I mean, I always say like people are fans of comics that like preach about like inclusivity and social justice and doing the right thing and being kind and nice to other people, and then when they
right
kind of change to that type of comic, that goes out the window. So it's like, all right, like, so what did you really get from the stories that you're reading? Like, what did you enjoy about it other than just he looked a certain way or he never did this, he never, like, things change. So I'm not really, for me, I personally, like, I think change is inevitable, so I never really get too upset when things do change because it's going to happen and it's going to continue to happen. So that's the only part, like I said, that can be frustrating.
Yeah,
about this new wave.
100%, I agree. It makes me not want to go on the internet, and
yeah, I keep it to a minimum for sure.
Part of my job is to do that, so it's like I have to put the blinders on or just know what I'm going to get.
Yeah. You kind of get numb to it after a while reading all these horrible comments,
Yeah.
But those comments are not going to stop anytime soon because
No.
Disney has just merged with Fox this week officially. So they own even more of your childhood, and Disney is going to continue to pump out some of these reboots and reimaginings of your favorite characters. So we'll see. I'm not super excited that they got Fox. I do kind of enjoy that there was kind of a separation because not everything needs to be kind of Disneyfied, and stories don't always need to be in part of a cinematic universe or be, follow a certain formula. But they do have high quality. So there's that. I don't know.
Yeah, does Disney need to own any other companies? I mean, who do they have? They got Marvel,
they have Marvel,
Pixar, ABC,
Star Wars,
Lucasfilm, and now they got Fox. ESPN. And people are thinking, okay, they got Fox, so that means everyone's saying that means Deadpool, right? That means they got the X-Men are going to meet the Avengers, and Deadpool's going to show up here.
I don't want them to. That's like my thing. Like
Right, exactly. And that's a lot of stuff what I've been hearing, but it's weird when you also think that Fox had a specific stake in Hulu, and now that Disney bought out Fox, Disney almost owns half of Hulu now. And then when you take into consideration that Disney is coming out with its own streaming platform soon, Disney Plus, like, my mind starts to swim around a bit trying to unpack how all of this is going to play out and work in the long run, whether it's TV shows or movies, and who has the rights to what, how it's going to play. It's a big deal.
Everything. Like, they own your childhood completely. They own my childhood basically completely. I mean, for me, like, the superhero stuff is obvious, but I was kind of more concerned about like what they would do with like the Alien franchise and stuff like that.
Yeah,
those were more type of stuff that I don't really see them handling that well.
Yeah, I don't. I'm trying to be cautiously optimistic here since this just happened. Um, uh, like for instance, they now, if I rem, God, this is confusing. Do they own FX? I feel like FX and FXX are now part of Fox
Yeah, I
Entertainment.
don't know the entire details of the deal. I'm not sure if it's 100% of Fox properties that includes all that stuff.
Well,
From
here's what
what?
happened. The day that the deal went through, the Disney website, their redesign launched and they had this banner header image on their website, which was just like it was like images of all their big properties. So you had every big Disney thing you could think of, Toy Story, The Lion King, whatever. But interspersed in between that, you had like images of ESPN and The Simpsons, and Donald Glover from Atlanta was like there between I between like Dumbo and I don't even know what, but it looked like such a cobbled together mess that I'm wondering if that's representative of how this is all going to land and
Well,
play
if
out.
Donald is on it, then that must mean they own FX.
Right. So that being said, I there are some really edgy shows on FX. Like,
They
how
are
is
not
this?
the best when it comes to creative control, uh, like
You mean
giving
Disney?
creative control.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's my concern.
and I think less competition is never great for creativity. So, like I said, I'm not completely worried, but I'm a bit worried about kind of what's going to happen with a lot of my favorite stuff that's
Yeah,
not Disney, like, not that Disney lane of content that you kind of expect from them.
I I I wish I had something constructive to say here. I know people who work at Fox who were affected by this deal, um, and I'm trying to think of it through the lens of output, what the public's going to get. Um, in return, just in terms of like whether it's TV shows or the big tentpole movies or even the experiences now at Disneyland and Disney World, now that they own Fox properties, what does that mean? Does that mean The Simpsons, which has a ride at Universal, is now going to have some sort of presence at the Disney parks? Like, I know I'm getting kind of into the minutia here, but it's hard for me to wrap my head around how this is going to look 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, and what the public is going to how we're going to be in consuming the content that is churned out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea. Like, I literally can't even. Like I said, I can't really imagine
That's why I'm trying to
what
be
they're going to
cautiously
do.
optimistic. Yeah, I'm trying.
Like I said, I mean, it's good in terms of quality because that's what they are really good at, but not the best in terms of creativity and kind of the types of stories that you can really tell. Like Donald talks about just some crazy stuff, so it's hard to imagine unless Disney's really just gonna be kind of hands off with that type of property.
Yeah,
It's gonna be hard to imagine that type of stuff continuing to be put out because that's one thing about FX I did enjoy is that they were willing to take more risk, and Disney's not a
right.
risk taking company. More so than like I'm worried about that more so than like Deadpool and stuff. That's all gonna be fine, I think, ultimately.
Yeah, no, I have the same take on it, and that's what I would think of. Is like I don't think it was Fox Searchlight, but one of the Fox studios had to shutter its doors either today or yesterday as part of the deal, which churned out a lot of like more indie movies that got award recognition, but were more like art house films. And when you
Yes,
got
it was probably Searchlight because Searchlight does most of that type of stuff for Fox.
yeah, I don't think well, you know what? I don't want to open up a browser and look, but uh, I know it was some smaller ancillary part of Fox. Um, and it's one of those things where it's like, okay, Disney comes in and buys the company out, but then how is that going to affect these smaller? more prestige films that come out that aren't necessarily big tentpole films, but get people talking and end up getting awards recognition at the end of the year.
Yeah,
Like,
that ultimately are necessary, I think, for creativity wise.
right. I don't know the name of the company. I saw it. I mean, I don't think it was Fox Searchlight. I think it was another one. But honestly, it doesn't even really matter because the end result of what I'm discussing is it kind of also goes hand in hand with I've had conversations about anti piracy and online piracy for like big and small movies, and studios make these big budget films to basically fund the smaller um, awards style movies that ends up, like The
Yep.
Favorite and even Shape of Water, which was Fox Searchlight.
Yep.
And what happens when these smaller studios start falling off? Then it
Yep.
feels like there's going to be even a bigger chasm between whatever Avengers movie is coming out and that small film that was only in theaters for like 3 weeks, but is suddenly being nominated for all the awards. Where you're like, what the hell was that? You know what I mean? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. You definitely don't want to see like a release schedule of nothing but blockbusters and
No, and I feel
superhero
like we're
movies. It's
getting
like
there.
it's been increasing every year for sure.
It's
So
Fox 2000. That's the name of the
okay.
company. Although I've never even heard of Fox 2000, but they just got
No.
killed.
I mean, I guess we're gonna find out real soon
Yeah.
because they're known to move pretty fast. So once they got Star Wars property, they moved like the next week on kind of plotting out the future. So we'll see. Definitely, we'll find out. So you are kind of the TV guy, I'd like to say. So we're going to talk about maybe some upcoming shows that that we should kind of be on the lookout for.
There are so many goddamn shows.
Almost too many.
When you said you
There's
wanted
too
to
many.
talk about this, I'm like, I'm compiling a list, and it's first off, it's one of those things where we're right now in the mid season. The mid season premieres of shows came back in like the middle to end of January, and it used to
Yeah.
be that time of year where before Breaking Bad and Mad Men showed up and changed how television was consumed, we would just have, 22 episode TV shows and not really have this 13 episode model that we have now. And TV shows would premiere in the fall and they would end towards the end of spring, early summer. Now we just got,
There's
now
no end.
you have Netflix and FX and all these different places. We're like, well, fuck that. So I'm
Every day, every week, I look up. Here's another show for you to watch. Like it's like, all right, I
yeah.
can't keep up with the ones I do watch now. So
So I made a list of like the ones that I'm excited for that people should be on the lookout for that are coming earliest March 24th all the way through the end of the year. And
okay,
the first title I have on this list is Into the Badlands. That's not a new TV show at all.
yeah,
It's on AMC. It's it's a corny show. And the reason I have it on my list is this is going to be the final season, final 8 episodes. It premieres March 24th, Sunday. And I don't know when this episode is going to go up, so it's possible March 24th was last week once you're listening to this. But
it will go up before then probably.
oh, all right. Well, Into the Badlands, the reason why this made my list is because there's not many shows on television, and I'm even going to refer to like Daredevil and their fight scenes that really embraced the high energy, almost supernatural element of kung fu martial arts movies. And this has a supernatural take to it, obviously, but the fight scenes in this TV show, if you go in to watch, just watch it for the fight scenes because they're fucking ridiculous and over the top and super bloody and are unlike anything I've seen on television before. And that's why it's on my list because the story is a little silly. The acting, not the best, but the fights, I feel like they blew all their budget on that. And
Yeah, I've heard of it. I haven't seen it myself, but I have heard of it, and everybody who has told me about it's definitely been like the fight scenes,
yeah,
the choreography.
dude, that's
That's like the number one.
It's the only reason to go in, unless, I don't know, unless you're a fan of bad acting. There are some good actors on the show, don't get me wrong, but I really do feel like they spend most of their times on the fight choreography and the battle sequences. Um, so that's coming on Sunday, March 24th. I have seen the first 2 episodes of the next show I'm going to mention, What We Do in the Shadows, based on the 2014 Taika Waititi movie starring Jermaine Clement and I can't remember the guy that played Murray. I can't remember his
Wasn't
name.
the flight
Flight of the Conchords,
the
yes.
Flight of the Conchords? Yep.
Yeah, the guy that played Murray in Flight of the Conchords showed up in the movie as a werewolf. And the whole concept of What We Do in the Shadows is basically what would happen if a group of vampires that live in the city had a camera crew following them around to do kind of like a mockumentary style story like The Office or Parks and Rec. And I've seen the first.
So it's going to kind of be like the movie.
Yes, 100%, absolutely. Because I've seen the first 2 episodes, and it's exactly what you would expect. The first episode is directed by Taika Waititi, who moved on to do. He did Thor Ragnarok, and
Yep.
I think he's working on the new Star Wars live-action TV show, The Mandalorian, that's going to be coming to Disney Plus. This show is hilarious. If you're a fan of Flight of the Conchords, and if you've seen What We Do in the Shadows, definitely watch this show. It's coming to FX. I almost forgot to say Into the Badlands is on AMC. It's coming to FX March 27th, so that's Wednesday? That's Wednesday night, and it's pretty great. Again, we talk about Disney, and then I think, how is that going to affect a show like this? And I hope it doesn't, because it's brilliant. And Jermaine Clement is one of the executive producers and writers and directors on the show as well, and you can definitely feel it in the humor, in the delivery of the dialogue, and just how the vampires exist in this world. Is pretty great.
I've seen the movie, so I'm definitely interested to see how the series turns out.
It's pretty great. Next on my list, I have a story to tell here. There's a show called Hannah that's coming to Amazon Prime. It's premiering on March 29th.
Based on the movie, right?
Based on the movie.
There's a lot of shows based on movies.
It's based on the movie, but it's not just based on the movie. It's written by the guy that wrote the movie. So the TV show is from David Farr, the creator of the film, which came out in 2011, starring Saoirse Ronan and Cate Blanchett and Eric Bana. And he decided that he could reinterpret his story in a longer format. And I actually went on a set visit to Budapest, Romania. Is it Romania? Budapest, Hungary? Yeah.
Hungary.
So I always do that because there's a Bucharest and a Budapest. I went on a trip for Collider. I did a set visit for Collider back in May. And I went on a 3-day set visit. They shot in Budapest. And I got to interview the cast and be on set and watch them shooting it. And I've seen the first episode, and it looks pretty badass. It's starring Joel Kinnaman, who was in what the hell was the name of that Netflix show where he's like naked and shooting people all the time?
Altered Carbon.
Yes, he was in Thank you. I'm glad that is a good explanation of the show. He was in Altered Carbon. He was the new RoboCop. He was in Suicide Squad. Well, he is in Hannah. He plays Eric, Hannah's dad, the role that Eric Bana played in the movie. And he's reuniting with Mireille Enos, who he starred opposite in AMC's The Killing, which was a great show that lasted, I think, 4 or 5 seasons. But they're not friends in this, so it's pretty interesting to see their dynamic. It's darker and edgier, I think, than the movie was, because the movie had this fairy tale theme that lasted throughout, and I think they sort of got rid of that for the TV show.
Yeah, they're just kind of trying to be kind of a box office hit, but it wasn't really that type of movie. It was, it was okay. It wasn't like
it had a great soundtrack.
Bad. Yeah,
that was what I took away from it. The Chemical Brothers soundtrack is pretty great to write to, if that's your sort of thing. On March 31st, holy crap, that is not that far away. Barry is coming back to HBO. I don't know if you've seen Barry. Henry Winkler and Bill Hader both won Emmys for their performance on the show. And it's basically the idea of what happens when a depressed hitman finds joy in a local community theater group. How can he escape his life of murder to this new community where he's actually found acceptance and happiness for the first time in his life. And it starts off as a dark comedy and took a really unexpected dramatic twist about halfway through the show. And I've never seen Bill Hader in such a performance, and I cannot wait for season 2. So I didn't realize that was right around the corner, March 31st. It's like a week away, a week and a half. If you haven't seen it, it's on HBO. They're 30-minute episodes. It's not like you have to invest a lot of your time in each episode.
Yeah, I might check that out. Because for me, it's like a lot of these shows are like 1 hour episodes each now. And it's kind of like, I'll get around to it, maybe. No, 30 minutes, I can do that.
I think it's 30 minutes, and I think if I remember correctly, it was either an 8 or 10 episode season. So it's not a huge time commitment, and trust me, it's. I
mean, that's why I just finished Russian Doll, literally because it was 30 minutes.
Yeah, man. Oh, that show was unexpected the way that unraveled.
Good show.
I don't even know if they can do a season 2. I don't even think a season 2 is necessary for that.
I mean, it was the perfect arc.
Yes.
But it was a hit enough that I think they're going to make a season 2. Some way, somehow.
But then you hope that they're not going to fuck it up. When you have a show like that has a great beginning, middle, and end, and you don't necessarily need another season. That's like what you said about Toy Story 3. It's like, okay, are we just doing this for money? If we're just doing this for money and that's going to dictate the story you write, then maybe it's not coming from the same genuine place that the first season.
I mean, this is why Breaking Bad is probably my favorite show ever, because
but
they ended it right when they needed it.
But a Breaking Bad movie is coming out soon. So it's like, do we need to know what happened to Jesse Pinkman after he escaped the Nazis?
But will I watch it?
Absolutely. Right.
Like,
okay, have you been watching Better Call Saul? Because I have this theory that somehow Jesse Pinkman is going to run into present-day Saul, who is now Gene Takovic, the manager of the Cinnabon in, like, where is he, Nebraska?
I think I got to season 2. I think it's season 4 now, so I haven't seen the last 2 seasons.
I want them to reconnect, and I don't even know how that would work, but I think that would be pretty, even if it doesn't at all make any sense.
I think they're probably going to build up to it. They've shown some pretty big characters already, so I think I wouldn't be surprised if he found some way, even if it's just like a one-off type of thing to reappear.
Yeah, it would please the fan.
For sure.
Next on my list, now you and I emailed a bit about Jordan Peele's Us, and I just wrote like a 2,000 word long article about the pop culture Easter eggs in the movie. And so it's really fresh in my mind, and I think he's going to ride that wave into April because Twilight Zone is coming to CBS All Access in April.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what he can do with that.
It's going to make me buy CBS All Access. That was not a service I was going to get at all, and now I'm just going to buy it for Twilight Zone. But what I find interesting...
I think they have Star Trek Discovery on there. That's a show I think I watched.
I heard it's gotten better in season 2, but
yes,
there's so many streaming services out there. I gotta pick and choose where my money goes.
Yeah, so that's definitely be our last topic that we're gonna talk about. These streaming services,
but like Twilight Zone. So I don't know if you remember, they rebooted Twilight Zone in the 80s.
No.
George R.R. Martin was one of the writers on the show, and it was not a good reboot. And the fact that they're finally rebooting it with someone who has shown that he has the storytelling chops and the on-camera charisma to be this generation's Rod Serling or Alfred Hitchcock, however you want to explain him, because I've seen him be described in both lenses. I can't fucking wait. And I know that they are going to be paying homage to the classic, some of the classic episodes. I've seen some breakdowns of it. The cast that's been announced, and the fact that it's on CBS All Access, I'm wondering if they're going to have to censor anything. Not that I don't necessarily want it to get profane left and right, but I'm really intrigued and hopeful, especially after the commercial that they premiered during the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think he's on fire right now, and I think he has a great kind of imagination for that type of stuff, and
Yeah.
it's very subversive in a lot of the stuff, which I think is what you need for like a show like that. And I mean, I'm a pretty big fan of Dark Mirror, a lot of those episodes, so I can. There's definitely a space for it, that type of show.
Right, right. Yeah, that's something that we've talked about on my podcast before, is that there's this resurgence of this type of anthology storytelling format that sort of went away after Tales from the Crypt went away in the late 90s, early 2000s, because I guess people then thought that these TV shows were more so like too short attention span ish with the way that they were telling the stories, and you didn't have to invest a lot of attention to an overall season narrative. But now we have so much content that it's kind of hard that these are popping up like beacons in all these like high concept shows where you need to focus on every little detail, which is why shows like Love, Death, and Robots work so well. And Black Mirror showed that, and then Philip K. Dick inspired anthology series are popping up, and so the fact that they brought Twilight Zone back, or that they're bringing it back, feels like a no-brainer. And why did it take them so long? But
yeah,
I'm glad it's coming back, and I'm not glad I have to spend more money on more content. But I gotta know. I gotta be in it.
Yeah.
I can't wait like a month to see an episode everyone's going to be talking about in April,
Yeah.
On April 7th, just 1 week later, because we can't fucking catch a break, is Killing Eve. Season 2 of Killing Eve is coming back on April 7th, and I don't know if you've seen the show. It stars Sandra Oh.
I've seen a couple episodes. I haven't gotten through the first season.
Oh, man. I'm going to give you this. Okay, so I don't know if you're going to find the time, but if you watch Barry and Killing Eve match up really in a weird way, because they're both follow like this killer character that is trying to find some semblance of humanity and normalcy in their chaotic world, except Barry's a comedy and Killing Eve is not, but there are dark comedic elements in it. All I know is that was my favorite show last year. Well, that's not all I know. I know a lot of other things. And it came out of nowhere, and now season 2 is coming back, and it's a BBC show, BBC America. And I guess AMC, who owns BBC America, was like, well, we're going to air it too, because AMC right now has The Walking Dead, and that's it. And this show was
slowing down.
Yeah, exactly. And the show was killing it in the ratings. So if you have not seen Killing Eve season 1 and you have AMC, know that now's the time to catch up somehow, because season 2 is coming soon and it will be on AMC. It's a great show. It's Sandra Oh deserves all the awards she received for her performance in that show.
I've heard nothing but good things. I just haven't really had the time yet to kind of sit down and watch it.
I'm halfway through this list. I'm trying to move fast for you.
Well, all right. So I think that's good right there. There's two last shows I really wanted to kind of
go for it.
Talk about. Obviously, Game of Thrones.
That's on my list. That was next.
Yeah. So I think April 13th?
14th.
I can't remember the exact date. 14th. So are you a big Game of Thrones fan?
No.
No?
I'm in the minority in the sense that I've watched every episode, and I'm not going to say I hate the show, but I'm going to say I don't like it. But I've watched every episode because I have to. I have to know what's going on, especially in the industry I work in. And there are characters that I love to watch, and the effects on the show are, jaw-dropping. And there are episodes where, like Red Wedding, for instance, where I'm like, oh, what the fuck? This is a prime example of a TV show that raises the stakes in the sense that you never know who's going to die. You could engage so much with a character, and they can become your favorite thing. And this is one of those shows where they just pull out the rug from underneath you. And mind you, I did not read the books. I tried getting into the books, and it just wasn't my thing. And Not a big fan of the show, but I can appreciate it
Yeah,
for what
you
it is.
definitely I can say you're definitely in the minority there
I know.
because obviously it's a huge,
I know.
huge property, huge following. I'm definitely a fan. I'm not a fan of every episode. Obviously, there's some super slow moments, but I do kind of like that type of style because they do pretty good job of building, the storyline and
Yeah.
the world throughout the entire seasons, except for season 7, which did a bunch of time jumps to kind of try to speed things up.
Right.
So, like, I can't wait for this one. Like, I mean, obviously we didn't get it last year, so it was a big, absence. So people have
Yeah.
definitely been dying to see this one. And even if you don't love the story, the fight scenes are fucking epic.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
this season's gonna be basically all about the war. So I can only fucking imagine.
We've been waiting for winter to come. I'm like, let's get to it.
Yeah.
It's only been 8 years, but
the closing war fight scene that ended last season had me so hyped for this season. So I really can't wait to finally see this one.
That is an interesting thing you brought up, though. The fact that it was gone last year. So many people dropped HBO because Game of Thrones was not available. Like their subscribership went down.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I believe it. That was a big one. That's their big one. That is their big one. Like it's the reason why most people got the streaming service in the first place.
Yeah.
Like, damn, how can I watch Game of Thrones?
Yeah. And now each episode that's coming is going to be about. I think I read that each episode is going to be movie length. You're going to get like
hour and a half.
Yeah,
it's the longest one.
I mean, I'll watch it, but
only seven episodes though. So 7 or 8, I think.
I think it's 7. I think it's 7.
I mean, you're gonna get some epic fight scenes in this one for sure, and there's gonna be a lot of payback, and that's literally the best part of the series for most people. For me, is like the build up to like, because the good guys never win for the most part of leading up to this, and then you finally get those giant moments of like payback and like revenge, and like that's those that kind of feeling is. There's certain characters that have it coming, and you just can't wait to actually like see it happen.
I feel you on that. And that's what draws me in. Every time I'm like, fuck this show, and then something happens, I'll be like, oh, that was cool. I mean,
they're really good at making you hate certain people. Like that's one thing I will say is that they are really good at that.
Yeah. Well, I'll watch it and I'll report back to you on whether or not I hated it as much as last year or the year before.
So I gotta ask, how do you feel about Stranger Things? Because season 3, the trailer just dropped.
I know, and that was also on my list. See, I cover the bases. I am okay. So I think season 3 takes place in 1987, and in 1987 I would have been 11 years old. So this is like appealing to a place I was kind of almost along the age lines of where they are. Maybe they're a few years ahead of where I was in 87. So like the pop culture things that they're riffing on. Every season has something. You had the Ghostbusters, you had E.T. So I saw the trailer, and I mean, immediately I wanted to watch Gremlins. Although Gremlins came out in like I think 84 or 83. I love the style and tone of the trailer. It definitely feels like it's later in the 80s than the first 2 seasons. And I'm here for the sheriff. Like, I what's Sheriff Hopper? Yeah, he's my favorite character. I will watch now. I'll watch anything David Harbour is in because of this show. Even though he was great in Newsroom and also great in Manhattan. And I don't know if he's going to be great as Hellboy, but I saw the trailer. July 4th sounds like a perfect weekend to just stay indoors, I guess, and watch this show and avoid the crazy public displays of fireworks and drunken partying everywhere. I'm kidding. I would rather do those things. But because I have a baby in the house, I will probably be indoors binging these episodes. I'm into it. I can't wait to see what they do.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings. I love the world. I love the setup. Obviously, like you said, the '80s feel they nail it completely, and it definitely feels like a Steven Spielberg classic type of film, which I loved growing up, and like I think a lot of people did. That's why people kind of gravitated towards it so much. I just don't really love the story of it all,
Yeah.
like the actual story. Like I don't think they execute things very well.
You have a point.
Especially in season 2, it felt very underwhelming in terms of like what actually happened.
Yeah.
But there's like cool characters and there's cool imagery and like it's a cool just setting to be in. And I think that carries it more so than the story. Like the story, I don't think they've really done anything special or
I think
super
they
exciting.
I think they sort of buckled under the pressure of this world they were building and not expecting the show to take off the way it did. So that trying to build out that world and these characters and the reasons behind what's happening even more. In season 2, there were plot lines that got a little thin. I
Super thin.
completely
I was
agree.
really expecting some follow up to a lot of things that happened in season 1 and just kind of never did. And then when it kind of
Yeah.
did, it was super like shallow.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
But it's really cool to look at.
yeah, it's really cool. Like it's super cool. Like don't get me wrong, like it nails the visuals of everything. Like Goonies was like one of my favorite movies ever. So they definitely nailed that kind of dynamic between the kids and everything like that, and the feel and the coolness of like just being in the '80s and everything. But it's just like the story is really not that great. Like,
Yeah.
To me, the story is really not that good.
So you have your Game of Thrones, and I'll have my Stranger Things.
All right, cool. I mean, there's gonna be a lot more Game of Thrones coming too, because there are a lot of prequels
I
being
know.
made and spin-offs,
I
and
know.
they're on the way. It's not going anywhere soon, even after it ends.
I'm very aware.
So before we get to like our last kind of topic, we kind of mentioned it before, but we didn't really talk about it. Was Supernatural is finally coming to an end after 15 seasons? It's 15?
It's going to be its 15th season coming up in the fall. Yeah.
So I've only kind of seen it sparingly. It's always on TV, so it's like, oh, I guess I'll watch an episode or rerun of this and this. Like I don't really know the entire story, so I haven't, obviously definitely have not kept up.
I can confidently say without any sort of embarrassment or shame that I have seen every episode of Supernatural, barring this season that's currently airing.
So you're a fan.
Yeah. I mean, look, I started watching the show on a whim. I guess it was on the earlier seasons. They're still on Netflix, and I'm a horror fan. I love horror movies, and especially the earlier seasons, they really did like this insane monster of the week formula that was similar to that of the X-Files. And
that's kind of why I watched it, because I love the X-Files.
Now, the show originally was planned to have they just intended it to have a 5-season story arc. Right? And
times 3.
And the 5th season, it came to this big battle between Sam and Dean, the humans on planet Earth, their new Castiel friend who is Angel, and them battling demons and Lucifer over the soul of Sam and the future of the planet, all this crazy over-the-top stuff. They then continued the show after that, after they tied all that together, and for the most part, it has worked. It's turned into like this, I'm not going to say like a comic book series, but these characters feel, and they even made reference to it and had a crossover episode with Scooby-Doo, but they're kind of like living this ongoing Scooby-Doo life, where they're constantly, solving mysteries and fighting ghosts and doing all these bonkers supernatural, for lack of a better word, things. And I think it all comes down to the main characters of Sam and Dean, because it's their emotional foundation. Their bond is what solidifies how the show works. And they've even said multiple times they're like a family. I mean, they just aired their 300th episode, which is...
I mean, 15 seasons of, like, to do something for 15 straight years is like... It's crazy.
This show started on the WB. The WB ended up rebranding and became the CW. And this is
the CW, yeah.
This is one of the only shows that that is still airing that aired on the WB first. That is still on now the CW. Um, there were later episodes that got a little weak in its storyline because you're on for so long. What new things are you going to be able to explore? You start recycling ideas, or your storylines start getting more and more bizarre, which ends up, I think, which can end up, I think, taking away ultimately from what makes the show watchable, which are these characters and their relationships and their history together. But somehow I keep coming back to watch more episodes. And now that I know that they have an end date and that like just one more season, I'm gonna watch the fuck out of that season because I know that now that there is an end goal in sight, they are going to probably, hopefully, work to tie all these loose ends up and deliver a pretty kick-ass season since they know it's ending. I hope.
Shows are never the best at tying up loose ends. That's the only thing
I'm
about
just
series.
hoping it's not going to be like
series are always pretty terrible at ending. Like
as long as it's not like Dexter or Lost.
See, I started watching Dexter after like season 4 or 5 because it just got
That
too
was smart.
ridiculous.
You made a smart decision.
Like I loved the first 2-3 seasons, but it just got too ridiculous.
He killed his sister and then moved to the forest to become a lumberjack. So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
So as long as we don't have that,
I wasn't surprised. Once you have kind of that core concept, it's like where can you really go with it after so many seasons? But
yeah, 15.
Yeah. 15 is crazy. Like, I mean, I was. It's like one of those shows for me, like kind of like It's Always Sunny, where it's like, oh shit, there's another season.
Yeah, I was just about to say.
I haven't checked out in like 3 seasons, but maybe I'll
Always
catch up
Sunny,
bit,
I think, is now the longest running comedy on TV in the history of television. I think, and I'm not talking about Saturday Night Live or anything like that, because I think they've just been renewed through to like their 14th season or something.
Yeah,
and
I mean.
And It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It's not like Frasier or something. It's just like, what? But yeah.
It's just one of those that when it's there, I'll watch it. Like, isn't that something I really like look out like for specifically now? But when I see it pop up, okay, I'll watch it,
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I wonder if there's going to be like an uproar to kind of save it like there was with like The Simpsons. Even though The Simpsons is objectively bad now, but they still are around because it's such a staple,
I don't think there will be because CW, the president of CW, Mark Pedowitz, basically said they were going to keep the Supernatural on for as long as the actors wanted to do it, and it was the actors' decision to make it come to an end.
It's rare that an actor wants to do something for 15 years, basically.
Right. So it's different from, like, say, a company saying we're canceling the show. So if it's the actors that the audience has fallen in love with and they're making the decision, I would assume that these fanatics, or I don't know, what do you call them, the super natties? I don't know what the fandom's name is, but whoever they are, I feel like they would probably respect that, given that they follow these actors online and become fans of theirs outside of these characters, know that they have families, their own lives and all that. That's what I would assume anyways.
Yeah, kind of like the Arrow. The Arrow's ending, I think, next year too. And I was just like, yeah, sounds about right. About time,
Yeah, I agree.
But there's nothing more to see here.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting Arrow to last as long as it has. So good on them.
Yeah, I mean, the last few seasons haven't been even really good. But because it's there, I just keep watching it. Like I'm already so invested in it. It's like, I guess I'll keep watching, but hoping it'll get better. But it has not. So I think it's about time.
I was never a huge fan of the show, but I got to give it credit for starting the.
Started
the whole comic. All the comic book series on the CW started with Arrow.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Flash, so we got that because of Arrow.
Yeah.
So I'm happy about that. But
yeah.
All right. So last kind of main topic I really want to talk about is, we again alluded to a little earlier. So Apple is on the verge of releasing their own streaming service, and they have a ton of like big key talent attached to like a lot of the shows that they plan on releasing, like a Reese Witherspoon, Jennifer Aniston type team up, Chris Evans led show and a bunch of other stuff. And I guess that kind of got me thinking, like, are there too many streaming services out there today?
Yes, there are. And there's this.
All right, great discussion.
There's this. There's this topic that I've seen. I've heard multiple people talk about, and I've seen articles about it. How people are just basically projecting that in the next few years, these streaming services are going to start. They're going to start being bundled like cable services to people. So it's like you're cutting cable for these streaming services, but then what happens when there's so many streaming services you can't keep track of, and then they're bundled together in a service like cable TV that is then offered to whatever consumer. I mean, look, you talk about the Apple service. I don't even know if their streaming service is going to be available to non-Apple users. I mean, I'm on a MacBook talking to you right now, but I don't have Apple TV. And I don't have an iPhone, so it's like,
neither do I.
Is this one of the things where you will only be able to access this content through an Apple device? You know,
I would say doubtful.
I would too, but there are things available on Apple TV that I can't currently get. So it's like I know Steve Jobs was very much about, when he was alive, about creating this ecosystem.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that's going to work. I am very interested in some of these Apple shows. Like they're rebooting Amazing Stories, which was Steven Spielberg's Amblin Entertainment TV show, which was an anthology TV show in the 80s. And that show with Jennifer Aniston that you spoke of, I think it's like about a morning news show, and Steve Carell's going to be in that as well. Like, there's some really cool sounding stuff coming to it, but at the same time, it's like
they have a fuckload of money to throw at stuff. So
right, but you got Hulu stuff, and you got Amazon stuff, and you got Netflix stuff.
Hulu, Netflix, Amazon, YouTube, the upcoming Disney, Apple, and I'm sure there's like one or two that I'm missing.
Well, there's even smaller things.
Crackle,
but Crackle's free. No one watches Crackle. But then also like Shudder, owned by AMC, which is a horror streaming service that is $5.
But I don't think anybody really watches a lot of these streaming services.
I do.
My thing is like, how are they making enough money to keep up outside of Netflix? And even Netflix, I don't think is making enough money to.
No, Netflix,
because they're throwing so much money at these properties.
Netflix is in debt, and I don't know how
they're massively in debt. There's no way, because
I don't know how they're reaping a profit on any of it.
On content.
Yeah, but you got like Amazon, like that show Hannah we were talking about. They shot it in like 12 different countries. They shot it all over Europe, and you're like, you have a budget like that.
20 people are going to end up watching it, probably.
Right, but Jeff Bezos has all the money in the world,
even though it's free.
Yeah, right.
I have it, and I literally don't watch any of the shows.
But Jeff Bezos has all the money, so that's where it comes from. It's like he's throwing all this money at this stuff to see what sticks. And you know, when we talk about streaming services, I look at Netflix like a utility at this point. It's like, you know, obviously I have Netflix. Like, I don't even think about it, right? And Hulu is starting to really put out some cool original content, but I go to Hulu for my like network television, for like my cable TV stuff that I can't get on Netflix. I forget I have Amazon half the time, and I do, and there's stuff on Amazon that you can watch, and I'm like, I don't have the time, I don't have the brain capacity.
Man in the High Castle, I think, is the only show I've actually watched from Prime.
I've seen something like Bosch, which is a show that feels like I should be 70 years old on a Barca Lounger watching, but instead here I am in my 40s watching this like cop procedural about a tragic alcoholic who can't find love. But
I mean, the thing with Amazon is, okay, maybe they're not, for sure they're not making any money off it, but they have so much money to just keep pumping into it that I don't think it's really that important to them. I think more like the acclaim and stuff like that is like, even with their movies, I think it's more like the prestige and the acclaim that comes with it. I think it's more important to them. But with these other streaming services, I'm just like, how are you going to continue? Like, how is it possible for you to continue like this?
You know, I'm wondering if there's distribution deals that they have in place with companies and channels outside of America. Like, for instance, I've had this conversation multiple times about The Walking Dead. How is AMC, and I know I'm getting off topic just a little bit, I'll tie it back around. How the hell is AMC still making The Walking Dead and making other Walking Dead shows when their ratings are going down. And then I learned that Sony TV behind the TV show is making so much money overseas and globally on the show. So then
True.
I'm wondering
I
if
never thought about that.
stuff on like stuff on Netflix, there's stuff internationally that people on Netflix are getting that we don't have access to here. Like DC Universe stuff. I think DC's Titans is available on Netflix for people outside
I
of
think
America.
DC is talking about doing their own streaming service too.
They
I
are.
forgot about that
It's
too.
called DC
Like
Universe,
that.
and it's currently available, I think, for $6 a month. Right, but I mean, so you think about that. You think about the stuff on Amazon. There are some shows that are Amazon originals, but Amazon has partnered with people like Sky, Sky
Yeah,
Forward.
I have seen some stuff
You know?
pop up on like TV.
So
Yeah.
then it's like, what are those distribution and partnership deals, and how are they reaping the benefits for Amazon and whoever else is involved? Like, there's a lot going on behind the scenes that I can't really wrap my head around in how much money they spend on a show that no one's watching, like that new Kate Beckinsale TV show, but somehow they're still doing it.
Didn't even know she had one.
Yeah, it's on Amazon. Or the new season of Bosch, which is like apparently one of their highest viewed shows that I don't know anyone who watches it, but something is happening. Something is bringing them some sort of profit.
But as you know, as these different services continue to like cut into each other's kind of viewership, because I don't think the average person, I don't think, is going to buy into all of these services. They're going to kind of pick and choose. Oh, I forgot HBO too, and like Stars and all the other stuff. But so I just don't see how it's going to continue, because it's just getting split up even more and more and more among these different services. Like I said, I don't think most people are going to continue to pay for all of these services. Like paying 1 or 2 and maybe even 3 was okay, but now you're going to pay for 12 to get,
right?
because you can only go here to watch this, or you can only get here to watch this show. Like, it's like,
that's why I'm like,
I don't have cable anymore, obviously, because there's no point to that. But like you said, it is kind of becoming the new cable thing. Instead of them having to pay like DirecTV and all that, they're just taking the money themselves. So for them, it's smart, but I just don't see as a consumer how they're going to keep up with it enough where it's going to make sense profitability wise to continue to produce these high stuff.
Unless if they bundle them together and turn it into like their own like cable package of streaming services.
Yeah, it's just hard to imagine seeing all of these giant companies really working together like that.
Yeah.
You know, because they're going to want their money. Disney for sure is not going to want
to
cooperate with any of them. They have, you know, all the children stuff for sure. They definitely want all the money. So I don't. Yeah, I just don't really see it. Like,
and this is where it gets even more tricky. That Warner Media is talking about doing their own streaming service. Warner is owned by Time Warner, who owns HBO and DC Comics. So then you start trying to wrap your head around what's going to be on what. If there's going to be a Warner Media or Warner Brothers streaming platform, and Warner owns HBO and DC, but HBO has its own streaming platform, as does DC with DC Universe, then it starts getting even more confusing and more convoluted as to where do you go for what.
Yeah, do you have to buy into every single one of them, or if you get access, do you get access there? You know, so yeah, like it's too much now. I think it's almost way too much. Like, people are complaining because cable and their packages were way too complicated.
Yeah.
This shit's even more complicated than cable now. Like,
yeah.
It's like, oh, I only watch this one show, so I have to pay a streaming service just to watch this one show that I'm watching. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I'm not a fan of it, and even though I'm complaining about it, I'm not going to incriminate myself, but I don't have any of the streaming services.
Oh, yeah?
But I still manage to watch a lot of this, everything I want to, basically.
All right.
But
I get it.
but I just don't really see how it's going to like continue like this. Like, it's just every day there's like some new streaming service popping up.
I know.
Because I forgot, like CBS, ABC, they all have their own individual ones too. And it's like,
yeah, but for those, like the ABC streaming service and even Showtime and HBO and all that stuff, you have to have a subscription. Like for networks like Stars, ABC, like you see these apps come up on the Xbox, or I don't know what platform or service you use to get your content. you see all these apps like, oh, I can access that. Nope, you have to have a cable subscription to get in. So that's how they still
Yo,
get you with
that's
that.
yeah, that shit's annoying. Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know, man. I feel like the ongoing theme of our conversation is there is too much shit out there to watch.
There's way too much. Way too much. Can't keep up. Impossible. TVs, movies. It's just you can't keep up now. It's like it's way too much.
I know.
So I don't know what I don't know if it can continue at this pace because the money they're putting into this is almost absurd at this point. Like Netflix just paid like $100 million for Friends again. Like it's
Wow, really?
yeah.
I didn't read that, but I mean, considering the amount of money that they're deep in debt. I don't understand how they are sustainable business wise. And
Yeah, no, we're charging what, 15? Is it $15
I
now?
don't know, my wife pays for it. Um,
I think you guys tell me if I'm wrong, but I think it's around $15 a month for the service. And I just I just don't see how that's bringing them enough money to cover everything they're putting
I
out
don't
because
either. I don't either,
the
but
amount of content they're putting out is original content they're putting out is insane.
yeah, I'm still gonna watch it. Hopefully, it doesn't go down like a burning ship or anything, but sinking ship, burning house,
Yeah, I
TLC.
wonder what would happen. I guess somebody would just buy up all their
Yeah,
content and
probably.
put it on there or whatever. Yeah,
I don't know, man. I, I don't know. Like, there's so much stuff out, and I don't have time to watch half of it. And I'm a TV journalist, and I'm supposed to watch TV. And now I have a 6-month-old baby in the house, which makes it even more of a challenge. So, like, I sort of just throw my hands up in the air and be like, whatever I'm meant to watch will fall upon me at the right moment. And that right moment is usually at like 1 o'clock in the morning, which is last night. I finished watching Love, Death, and Robots at 1 o'clock in the morning. So I don't know. I feel conflicted about it because I remember growing up, we had like 7 channels. So there's so much stuff now, and I think it's so awesome that TV has blossomed in this way. But the
yeah, it's
but
insane.
the flip side of that is I can't keep up, and I don't think anyone can. And if you try,
Yeah,
it's too stressful.
it's like complaining about having too much. Like I do think there's too much of a good thing. So it's like, yeah, you can put out all this great stuff, but if nobody even knows it's there or has a chance to like really see it, it's kind of like just the point. But like you said, I mean, it is great that there's a bunch of different content out there for. You can't really say I'm bored nowadays because the amount of
Right,
content
right.
that is out there is
Or
insane.
you can, and if you do, you're just spoiled because
Yeah,
you know, because
we are definitely spoiled. That is one thing about it. That nowadays we are definitely spoiled, like in terms of what we have access to.
yeah, I don't know, man. Let's reconvene on this topic once Apple releases their thing and Disney Plus is up because I have no idea how this is going to play out at all.
I do have. I think one interesting I do think about this streaming is that with all this money that they are pumping into like all these shows, almost number one on almost all the streaming services are like shows like The Office and Friends and
Yeah,
stuff like that.
right.
Like it's like people buy them and they basically just rewatch all the old network TV
My
shows
wife
that
has been
they
doing
love.
that. She's rewatched all these like NCISs and The Office and Friends and like all the stuff that you can
Yeah,
easily just get on DVD or Blu-ray or on cable syndication.
yeah.
It's just comfort food.
Th- This is why they just paid I think $100 for Friends because it was like their number one watched show out of all the hundreds of $1 million they're pumping into the content. Friends is the one
That's
that's
crazy.
drawing the people in the most.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Uh, I don't know. I don't know. You guys let us know where you guys watch, your preferred shows or what's your preferred streaming service. What do you guys think about all these new streaming services popping up? Will you, you know, invest into all of them or will you selectively kind of choose what you want to see? Or are you like me and have a fire stick? Let us know in the comments down below wherever this goes up. But yeah, that's it. I mean, we covered a lot today. A lot of TV, a lot of pop culture stuff. But that is it for today's episode of The Fearless Show. Again, today's date was March 22nd, 2019. And of course, if you have any topics, questions, comments, or suggestions about this show, past show, or any future shows, you can go to podcast@livinglifefears.co, email us at podcast@livinglifefears.co, or go to livinglifefears.co/podcast and fill out the form there, and you may make one of our future shows. Thank you to Aaron Pruner, our special guest today.
Thanks for having me.
Did a great job. Yeah, it was a good show. Definitely go check out his article on Deadly Class.
There will be more. I promise you I will write more for you.
For sure. It was a great article, so I'm definitely looking forward to more. Probably have you on, some future shows and whatnot. Definitely keep this going. Again, you can find us on Apple, Google Play, SoundCloud, YouTube, wherever this goes up. And thank you guys for joining and following and continuing to follow and support us. And again, if you like these podcasts, please subscribe wherever you kind of take the media in. But until then, we will be back shortly with another podcast. Probably next week. Can't guarantee it. Things have been busy, but looking at next week. So check you guys soon. Peace.